Hi guys, I'm Tom. Welcome back to The Medical Method. Today's video is going to be about imposter syndrome. I'm going to define what imposter syndrome is. I'm going to talk about how to deal with it as a founder, as a doctor, as anyone in a position of power, especially as a young person. I'm going to talk about 3 key factors in managing it well and how you come out the other side with a better team, a better product, a better company, and ultimately why you shouldn't really care too much about it. So thank you to Justin for this recommendation. Anyone who wants to know anything about starting a health tech company or really anything to do with being a founder, doctor, anything, comment below and I'm more than happy to make a video next week or the week after about what you're talking about. My audience is small but engaged, so please reach out and I'm happy to make the right content for you guys. So, imposter syndrome. I think it's really important to start out with a definition. What is imposter syndrome? For me, it means that you, for whatever reason, feel inadequate or lack confidence in a certain role or function or meeting or interview, any small circumstance. You can feel that feeling like you're hiding in plain sight. Like maybe no one can see it, but you're not meant to be there. And there's some secret club that you're maybe not a part of. And I think everyone's felt that in different times in their lives. You know, when you're first in the emergency department as a medical student, the first person to see a sick patient that's been waiting in the waiting room, and you barely know how to take a history, you've learnt some science, but you're basically not much better than any person on the street, and you're expected to take the history from the person. All the way up to more significant things, you know, pitching your product to a board of executives or speaking to the senior vice president of a multinational corporation that hires tens of thousands of people, and you're trying to explain to them why the problem that you're solving is important and the product that you've barely built they should be interested in. So these are all things that you will face in your life, no matter whether you're a founder or a doctor or in business. You'll feel sometimes like a bit of an imposter. So I think to manage it well, there's a couple of things that you need to reflect on and realize. One, everyone's kind of an imposter in some way. So there's an accumulation of experience in different roles and different settings. And you can think of it like a bit of an S-curve, like a sigmoidal curve. So early on, you don't know a lot, but you're learning really fast, right? There's an accumulation of experiences, whether it's being in a meeting with senior executives, trying to understand how they think, being in that waiting room, bringing in a patient. Those first experiences, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what the expectations are. There's a mismatch internally in your heart between what you think the expectation is, what you think is expected of you, versus what you're actually doing in that moment. And is there some mismatch? And I think that's where the fear comes. So first off, recognize that there is no perfect way to do anything. That mismatch just lives inside your head, but is unlikely to exist in reality. Most people don't have a firm expectation in any of these settings, and there are different ways to do well. So for instance, in meetings with executives and selling, there are many different ways to do it. You're going to learn in an accumulated way. So you shouldn't feel uncertain or feel like you don't deserve to be there, because frankly, no one will know unless you act like you know. So there's this kind of fake it till you make it sort of requirement in getting over imposter syndrome. And as you consistently have more and more of those experiences, that feeling, that mismatch in your head between what you think is expected versus what you're actually doing, that gap will shorten and shorten, because as you do it more and more, you'll get comfortable and you realize that patients don't tell me that I'm doing something wrong, or the executives don't say, have you ever had a meeting like this before? So there's never been an area where you've realized you've made a mismatch in the person you're dealing with's mind. And so when you realize that, you gain confidence and you get over the imposter syndrome. All right, so step 2, I think, is respect. So it's really, really, really important, especially in a founder setting, to be respectful of others that are more senior than you, have more experience than you, and very often, your elders and people that you can learn a lot from. I think a mistake is in that fake till you make it kind of modality that I was talking about, trying to play some sort of character or role that you don't really believe in yourself. That's where you're almost leaning into that expectation mismatch. You're trying to fulfill some behavior or personality that you don't really embody. And that's where things can go really wrong, I think, where the founder acts a certain way and is trying to be some sort of visionary. And really your job as a founder, I think, is to, one, enjoy the role of being the kind of knowledge absorber, the person that knows everything that's going on in the company, can see line of sight across everything, across product, sales, marketing, etc. And then bring in these subject matter experts that have this wealth of knowledge that you don't have, and absorbing and respecting that they have a deserved and earned ability in that area that you don't have. Understanding that, or acknowledging upfront that you don't know or you don't have familiarity in area, I think is really important, especially in meetings with senior people that, you maybe don't know what the ground rules are. We at Heidi, we've spoken to senior executives at companies that are valued at, billions of dollars and are publicly listed, and presenting our product and our idea to them. And so often early on, I'm super clear about what I wanted in those meetings. And even before we had a product, I would just call it out and say, thank you so much for taking this meeting. I'm a doctor, we're early stage startup. I really want to get your commercial insight out of this. You have a wealth of experience. I just want to understand where you see something like this fitting. What are the pitfalls in commercializing a product like this? What could we charge for it? What would it have to do for it to solve a problem for your organization? Listing out those questions, having prepared before the meeting, making expectations clear. That way you're putting the person at ease for them to understand what they can give you. Because no matter how much experience or confidence they have in an area, if you're not clear about what you want, it creates a bigger expectation mismatch between you and them. And that's where, again, it becomes embarrassing, where they think you're selling to them, or they think you're trying to hire them, or all these mismatches occur where you don't try to create a shared mental model between you and the person you're talking with. And again, in that imposter syndrome feeling, I think it can be really helpful and kind of liberating to just be straight up front. I've never had a conversation with someone as senior as yourself. Thank you so much for taking the time with me. I'm looking forward to speaking to you today. Something as simple as that will help you feel comfortable, and then that expectation mismatch has now been obliterated because they know where you stand and what your experience level is, and that you're still early in that sigmoid curve. And then the third aspect of imposter syndrome, or this idea of feeling uncomfortable, I think is, as a founder, how do you deal with hiring people that are far more senior than you, both in experience, potentially in age, maybe in salary and in other aspects? Just because you don't have that specific industry expertise doesn't mean that you aren't in a position to evaluate their ability to do that role well. So my first point of advice is be really specific about your job description and what you want this person to do. Even if it's a general set of skills, that's fine, but you should be able to specify it in a job description really clearly. In my early 20s with phrases and my early business experiences, I always kind of rolled my eyes at a job description and thought that if I just find an awesome person that's really capable, they can do well. But I realize now that has been a mistake. And if I look back at my hiring mistakes, they nearly always came from not having a great job description, both for that person and for me, to create that shared mental model of this is what success looks like for you in this role. So if you specify that job description really clearly, then it helps avoid scenarios where you feel like you can't interview this person who's 20 years your senior. If you have these expectations, these goals you want them to hit, then in the interviews, you focus on the goals, you focus on the actual deliverables that are part and parcel and important to that role. And it helps you, again, back to that expectation mismatch. You're not just randomly assessing their abilities in marketing, for instance, and asking them questions about their skills, or for me, looking at someone who's an engineer and trying to go line by line in their code. That's not really the purpose of the conversation. The purpose of the conversation is to establish, are they an A-level elite talent across these different aspects and functions that I really need to hire into? And then you'll start to realize as well, as a founder or as a doctor, you just have hundreds of these experiences. And on that S-curve, very quickly you become more experienced in an area than even the most senior corporate executives. You know, how many people has an SVP hired over the lifetime of their career compared to a founder who's venture funded? In pre-seed, seed rounds, you'll probably hire, you know, upwards of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people. If you're doing something like us with lots of part-time and casual staff, you know, you potentially interview and hire hundreds of different people. And then that means you're seeing thousands of resumes and cover letters. So you're quickly becoming an expert in an area that, you know, you have every right and confidence to do that function really well, to hire, to recruit, to evaluate performance. So I really think it comes down to setting your expectations clearly. That way you can, you know, nail those interviews, evaluate people effectively, and it's always about the work and the product and the productivity, not the person or their experience or your lack of experience in that area. So I don't know. I know that was a bit of a rant, but that's my consideration of imposter syndrome. I think as a summary, imposter syndrome comes from that mismatch between your internal assessment of your ability to do something and what you think the observer's expectation is in that moment. And the size of that gap is how much fear you have in that moment. I think the 3 ways to handle it are, first of all, realizing that the observer is very unlikely to ever call you out as being inadequate, and you just should consider this all a learning opportunity and back yourself, fake it till you make it. Step 2, be really respectful of that person's abilities, their confidence, and be comfortable setting expectations with them clearly, breaking the ice, creating a shared mental model with them. And 3, in scenarios where you feel like you're out of your depth, realize that actually, even with a small number of experience, you're more experienced than any other person may well be in that scenario, whether it's recruiting, hiring, firing. Especially as a founder, you will quickly become extremely competent in that area, more so than many people in the world that work in business and in corporate life. So hopefully you found this video useful. Like I said at the start, if there's anything that you want me to talk about, please comment below. Hopefully you like the setup, trying to improve the lights and the production value slowly. And that's been it. Thanks so much. See ya. Bye.